Now, it's not unusual being out in public. You encounter someone, you meet them, and they ask what you do. You tell them what they do, and the light bulb goes off, and then they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And then they recognize or realize that they know the work you do. Now, Dame Kristen, this is not unusual for you. This has happened to you. You've been somewhere. Kristen, you get fanboys all over this world, and they're like, "Wow, Kristen from the Pete the Planner show from Cricket & Co." They're a big fan. What's that like for you?
It's thrilling, actually. I love being recognized as, hey, you're on the Pete the Planner show.
Yeah, no, every day at the grocery store, at the single grocery store in your town.
True.
How many grocery stores are in your town?
Just the one. Because Dollar General doesn't count.
No, it doesn't. Dame, how often does this happen to you?
Let's see. Over the many years that I've been on the show, it has happened once.
Really?
Just
I feel like you've told me more than that. Anywho, I can't give too many details about this because I want to make anyone feel awkward any more than they should. I was somewhere last week, and someone said, "Oh, hey, I really enjoy your work." And I was like, "Thank you. It's very nice." I mean, I think I said, "I appreciate you saying that. It's very kind." And then they went on, right? And I was like, "Oh, yeah, really, thank you. And then they went on, and then they used a superlative, right? Ooh. Of like, you are, it was something like, you are literally the best something. And then in that moment, I was like 100% dismissive of them and their perspective. I was like, you've got terrible taste. Like, it was like, I'll take a compliment. I'm like, oh, I'm not, and by the way, I'm not that good at that, but I'll take it.
True.
And I'm like, okay, thank you. Very kind. But then it went to like, I no longer trust you, because that is not objectively true. Dame, you ever have that where someone compliments you and it goes too far, and then all of a sudden the compliment is rendered nothing because it went too far?
You lost me at getting compliments.
Oh.
Dame, I'll give you a compliment.
Oh,
I really enjoy talking to your wife.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You picked well.
Kristen, how about you? Do you ever have such effusive praise of you that you're like, I don't know?
You know, Pete, I'm kind of like you, and I struggle with just being complimented in general. So it all feels disingenuous to me, to be honest.
Is there anyone that like really takes a compliment and knows what to do with it? They're just like, yeah, you're darn right. I've got nice eyes. They're like, well, like what? Who do, you know? Does anyone know what to do with a compliment?
No.
I think
if you do know, teach us.
Yeah, I think people in Hollywood that are fawned over all the time probably get pretty good at handling that situation.
I feel like we've talked about this years ago on the show, but like when you compliment someone on like a physical, natural feature of theirs, like their eyes or something, you're like, you have beautiful eyes, and they say thank you. It's like they did nothing.
Yeah,
they did nothing unless they're wearing contacts. Yeah, it's like, oh, well, thank you. I worked really hard on these.
I don't think they might have spent a lot of time getting the presentation just right to really accentuate their eyes.
I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts this morning, and they're so good at consistently at the beginning of the show say, hey, if you'd rather watch this episode, go to youtube.com/ well, in this case, Pete the Planner. So if you're listening right now and you'd rather watch this, go. Here's what, Dame, may I set the scene here?
Please.
Oh my.
You're winding down from a long day.
Okay.
I mean, maybe you listen to us on the drive to work, which is fine. Maybe you listen to music. Go home, set your phone up, your TV up, just put on the show while you're cooking. You can kind of look up and you can see Kristen roll her eyes at Dame. You can see Dame roll his eyes as I talk about Kristen rolling his eyes at Dame. And you can see my chin. Monday mornings when I start, it's happening.
I can't wait to talk about this in a week.
I can't wait for Wednesday, actually. I think Wednesday will be the best day.
Pete is going to do the show from a seated position next week.
I feel like I am. Should we do, like, I don't know what's kosher anymore in terms of talking about weight or body image. Like, it really has gone some dynamic places in the last few years. Like, your body shame, but again, GLP-1s change that, but then it doesn't change that. So I don't know. Should I track my weight live on the air? I mean, is this a thing? Like, Kristen, you're uncomfortable.
I'm not. I just think that in the world we live in, just before we would have that conversation, to just say that we recognize that this is a really loaded topic, and that for some people it can be really triggering.
Loaded because I'm very heavy. Is that what you mean? Like heavy load?
Let me get the disclaimer out before you make the joke.
Like wide load. You're saying it's a loaded topic. This is actually, you're making a fat joke about me.
Oh my word. I'm so sorry for anyone listening.
Isn't it a weird time for this topic? Like, Dave, do you agree with that? Like, I think GLP-1s have made the weight loss topic more complicated than ever before.
You think so? Because now they're
exactly. You just did it.
I think so, because there's so much misunderstanding about what a GLP-1 is and what it does and who it's for. And the conversation becomes so complicated of like, what work did you or didn't you do? And people are really heated about it.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, if you think about the last 15 years, it went from like, I'm going to post pictures of me working out online. I'm going to show you. And I was all part of that. I was doing that.
Same.
Then that actually turned into an influencer thing, like, which wasn't even about look at me. It was about like, look at me and let me influence you. But then the idea of like, hey, I lost 50 pounds on my own without GLP-1s. And then now you say, I lost 50 pounds on GLP-1s. And then because a person is like shrinking the stress on their organs, both are good, but then one good, is one bad? And like, it's a weird spot.
I can easily see a future where people who take GLP-1s to lose weight will think people who are losing weight naturally are somehow shaming them or are.
That already happens.
It already happens.
Oh, then I don't. I'm sorry. Spend a lot of time on social media. That's not my algorithm.
I will say this, and no one cares what I think about this. Like, I think someone on GLP-1s losing weight, it's great, fantastic. Take the stress off your organs. I've considered it. I really have.
Pete's taking compounded semaglutide and telling us he's working out 3 days a week.
No. I'm just eating Greek yogurt. Like, I was talking to the trainer who was here a couple weeks ago, and he was like, the key to a lot of this will be Greek yogurt. And I was like, who thought that was the phrase?
What?
You start your life and you're like, someday a man will say to me, the key to this will be Greek yogurt. And I was like, well, sure. The Greeks are like, we told you.
Some Windex.
Aha. Oh, that's a good callback. Kristen had no idea what you were saying there, but that was funny.
Yeah.
Dame. Kristen, what movie did Dame just reference?
Well, I'm going to guess the only title that I know that has Greek in it. So I'm going to go with My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Wow.
Nice job.
Wow.
That's the only one I know.
Hey, guys, Kristen and I both have a hard out, so we need to get going here. And so this just reduced all the crosstalk.
This is a great reason to not be able to make the start of that meeting.
Anyway, I'm 208.
Oh.
208.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to be like, but I carry it well. Because I want someone to be like, that's it.
So funny.
It's so awkward.
Oh.
I love it. 208. I think I'm gonna land 90 days from now. Can we have a pool? Do you guys want to have a little bet here?
Sure. I think everybody else in YML probably ought to be able to get in on it, though.
Oh, that's true. But then it. I mean, again, like the three of us, we can probably get away with a little bit more.
Yeah, I feel like
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
It's a terrible idea.
I mean,
I would just love to see what people would get.
I'm gonna say in 90 days, I'm 185. You guys are dead air. This is
All right, yeah, I'm doing some calculations.
That's 23 pounds. Is that the math on that?
Yeah, I'm taking the under.
That I'll lose less than that.
No, you'll
go less than 185.
Yeah, actually, I was going to go less than 185 too, because when you get 90 days is nothing for a focus period for you, and you will.
I was going to say if you meet the planner this.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
but I'm old now.
True.
Okay, here we go.
Greek yogurt, man. It's the key.
Rick Swank is just hard out, no crosstalk. Should we have a pool? In 3. Oh, I'm not ready. Oh my God. We do have a really hard out, Kristen. What am I doing?
I don't know.
Oh no. Okay. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. This week on the Pete the Planner Show, it's the SpecTAXular.
That was good.
Thank you. Oh, that's Kristen Elanius, and Damian Dunn is here as well. This week on the show, we talk all thing taxes. Tax season is upon us. It has been declared. 1099s have gone out. Tax questions abound. And one of us on this show, life partner, is a tax expert. Of course, that person on the show did not invite the tax expert on the show. So we are going to speculate with all sorts of speculation about what a person should know about taxes in their entire life. Dame, you are married to a tax expert.
Up until you made that comment, yeah, I was. I don't know if she's going to think, yeah, why didn't he invite me on the show?
Kristen, is there anything more mansplaining than doing a show about taxes while just revisiting the points that your spouse gave you without actually inviting the spouse on the air?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that time that you guys did the student loan SpecTAXular episode and didn't invite me to be on it.
Well, I'll explain how that all worked later to you so you can understand it with your lady mind. All right, Dame, let's begin. Your kind wife decided to put together 5 things your accountant wishes that you knew about tax season. Am I supposed to frame it that way, or was this supposed to be like an anonymous thing from a tax professional? Did I just ruin her job and her life?
I mean, what's the chances that her clients listen to this show?
Good point. All right, Dame, are you running the show here?
Yeah, I can. So Pete's exactly right. I asked Mrs. Advice very kindly. I said, listen, we're doing a tax show on Friday. That's probably where I should have said, would you like to be on it? But I didn't. I said,
fair.
Could you do work for me so I could do a show better? I said, could you talk to your staff and say, hey, what are some things you wish your clients knew, or just clients in general, about tax season? They gave me 5 things.
Okay,
Number
5
one.
things.
Number 1.
No
particular order.
No particular order.
It's already too late to find a new CPA for your 2024 tax returns.
This is surprising to people.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising to me too, to be honest.
I've made this mistake a few different times.
Say more.
I have. Like, a person generally starts thinking about their taxes when 1099s start flowing around and W-2s and all these sorts of things. And you're like, oh yeah, I was going to make a change there. I'm going to call so-and-so. I have made that mistake. And then you get left out in the cold, and then you end up filing an extension.
Yeah. So what's happened is people outside the industry probably don't realize it, but there are a shrinking number of accountants in the United States right now. And the likelihood of you being able to find somebody at late notice, which this is late notice at this point. It may not feel like it to you, but it's very late notice, is getting smaller and smaller. Can you go to a low cost shop somewhere to potentially get your taxes taken care of? Potentially, yeah. But if you are looking for that private hand-holding experience with a CPA, chances are, at best, they're going to say we're going to have to file an extension and get to this later this summer.
I feel like I could do an entire show on this one point here, Kristen. Here's what's occurring to me.
Okay.
Every time we have this sort of conversation on or off the air about how busy tax preparers are, CPAs are, is this not a great profession to go into if you're a young person trying to figure out what to do? Or is the fact that there's now new math, is that why there's no accountants? Like, well, why is this like not a great profession?
I mean, I would think so if there's a demand. And I know that I can think of 2 practices off the top of my head that were really looking for younger persons to come in so that older preparers could step away from their businesses. So I mean, it seems like it, at least anecdotally.
Dame?
So there's one major roadblock in the eyes of today's college student that's trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives. In order to, what's that?
TikTok.
Yes. In order to achieve or be able to be eligible for your CPA license, you have to have 150 credit hours of education.
Okay, guys. Since I was in college, when people talk about credit hours, I don't know what any of it means. Like, you could be like, it takes 10 million credit hours. I'm like, wow. Or it takes 4 credit hours. What is that? 150 credit hours. What is that?
120 is typically 4 years.
Yeah.
So they're requiring a 5th year of education for you to be able to be out in. Now, I believe there might be a state that has just gone back on that. There may be other states that are considering it. But in order to be able to get your CPA, you have to pay for a 5th year of college.
Or you have to increase your course load all along the way.
Absolutely. Sure.
And it's not like it's not a rigorous curriculum. So to suggest that you're going to take like 18 or 21 credit hours along the way is likely not feasible.
And you're still paying for those classes. You're just squeezing them all in. So instead of stretching them out over a normal class load over 5 years, you're just deciding to drink from the fire hose and do it in 4.
The next thing your accountant wishes you knew about tax season.
Okay, folks. Paying taxes and filing tax returns is a personal responsibility. You engage us to assist with your accurate preparation, but it's your responsibility to be sure that your taxes are filed and paid on time.
This tracks. Like, I have no... I don't think there's another perspective to that. I know there's probably people back in the day that used to do it for you. You just sign it and they'll take care of it. But I think that's prearranged. Does anyone feel differently about that? Kristen, do you feel, I mean, you're wincing. You look like the emoji with the teeth grinding here. What do we got?
I am wincing a little just because the most important thing is upfront communication. If this is not something that your tax preparer does, that's totally fine as long as we're having that conversation up front. I think if I were looking for a professional to help me, I would pay for the service to be completely inclusive. Like, I'm a good record keeper. I'm great. I'm organized. I will hand you all these things. And then I want to forget about it, period.
To be clear, they will e-file for you. Accountants will e-file for you. It is your responsibility to make sure that it's actually accepted and filed at the IRS, though.
I'm not going to remember that.
Well, then you're rolling the dice.
Dave, number 3 thing that a CPA wishes you knew.
Calling or emailing us in January to ask how to reduce last year's taxes is not tax planning.
It is something, but it is not tax planning. Planning would be to make the call in October.
Maybe even as early as June to start working on some things. Yeah, you have to have some time and preparation to be able to implement some of the ideas that you're going to need to significantly reduce your taxes, because you're saying, okay, have you made your IRA contribution this year? That's not tax planning. That's just a way to maybe get a little more money taken off the top. If you're going to do legit tax planning, it needs to be a topic of conversation shortly after busy season in most cases.
Number 4 thing that your accountant wishes you knew about tax season.
We are required by professional standards to look at everything you provide to us. Please feel free to summarize.
Okay, this is interesting. Back in the day, my dad had a shoebox.
Yes, that word may have come up this morning in a phone call.
Wow, you guys are real sweet talkers.
Mm.
And my dad would just take the shoebox to his accountant was Peter Damel. I don't know why I remember that name, and I don't know why I'm saying it on air. And he would take it and like, here's our shoebox, Peter Damel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what you're supposed to do.
No, and my dad had the same shoebox, and his accountant was Dave Worthington. It's the same thing. But no, feel free to build everything into a spreadsheet and then keep the shoebox just in case you get audited.
20 seconds left. What's the final tip?
You have to communicate. Most CPAs are going to send out organizers, fill it out. That way they know exactly what happened in your life, so your tax returns are accurate.
I'm also guilty of that. Did my accountant get with Cassie to send these things to me?
Maybe.
All right, coming up after the break, your tax questions. You send to them you send them to us. We're going to answer them. All that's next on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. You guys, we are criminally behind. We're going to have to go. here.
Okay.
Because, Kristen, if I'm late and you're late to what you and I have to do together after this, that is bad.
Bad
Sorry,
news.
sorry,
bears.
Jeremiah.
3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner show. It's the SpecTAXular, talking of all things taxes in 2025. We asked you to send us your tax questions, and you did. You sent them to askpete@petetheplanner.com. That's askpete@petetheplanner.com. And, well, we got a lot of them. Who's running this show here today? Chris, Dame, who's Cricket? It's on you. You got it.
Okay, deal. First one's an easy one, gentlemen. What is a write-off?
I just write it off. You just write it off.
Just write it off.
Just write it off.
Damien.
Write-offs don't exist.
Write-offs don't exist, you say?
Those are called deductions. Write-offs do not exist.
Oh,
So this feels like the accountants all laugh at the common people. Like, they told me to just write it off. Is that what this is?
that's exactly it. Okay, Damien, educate us. What's a deduction?
Deduction is something that you can use to reduce your taxable income. So there are above the line deductions, below the line. We're not going to get into those, but there are certain things that you may be familiar with. Mortgage interest, which you may or may not be able to claim anymore because that is an itemized deduction. Medical expenses over and above 7.5% of your AGI, all sorts of stuff that is going to reduce the number that you are taxed on when it comes to it. Those are deductions. And what we normally hear this conversation is in business settings when somebody's like, don't worry, we'll write it off. Okay, whatever. But it's a deduction. And by the way, a lot of those write-offs probably aren't going to pass the sniff test.
I always feel like you're out to lunch with someone who's like, get it, I'll just write it off.
That's exactly it.
The way I understand that working is you can write at best 50% of that meal off. And so you're just writing off the other person's meal?
Or yours. I mean, whatever.
Buy one, get one free.
Close.
In my circle, it's like, I bought a new tool for the farm. I'm just gonna write it off.
I love that your circle involves farm implements. You know what I mean?
I mean,
I love that. Like I like mine doesn't, and so I love that I get exposure to that through you.
oh my. Well, they don't know what write-offs are.
That's fair. Dame, you brought up standard deduction, and I feel like standard deduction versus itemized. This is where I would argue most confusion exists within taxes.
I agree. So there's actually been a significant change in this area in the last, Kristen, I'm going to space on when this was implemented.
Has it been 5? No, more than that.
More
years.
than that. Yeah, more than that.
Thanks,
Anyway.
Obama.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it goes back that far. There is a standard deduction that you are allowed to take on your taxes, and that is based on the number of people in your house. At this point, if you are married and filing jointly, actually, I think that's what it is, because there's no child deductions at this point. If you're married filing jointly, that number is, Kristen, 26.
I don't know the exact number. You're asking the wrong.
Maybe we should have looked that up. Anyway, and if you are single, it's half of that, whatever it is. In order to be able to itemize, your individual deductions have to surpass whatever your standard deduction becomes. And there are a number of ways that you can get there. Whether, like I said, mortgage interest, SALT taxes. Kristen, what's a SALT tax?
State and local taxes.
There we are. State and local taxes. They are capped, by the way. $10,000 a year, which may or may not seem like a big deal for you, but I promise you in the coasts, that is a much bigger deal. So if you can add up some of these things over the year and surpass what the standard deduction is, you are allowed to deduct more of your income from your gross income.
You just write it off.
Just write it off.
You guys might not know the answer to this. Is the child tax credit part of that, or is it separate from that?
Separate from
that, because that's a credit, not a deduction.
Oh yeah, I am a professional.
Quick tip on that: if you're not sure, just look at a Schedule A, because a Schedule A is actually really, I know it sounds really complicated, but the form is actually really easy to understand, and you can see what all of these different items are. And in my opinion, it really demystifies the whole thing, because it looks so unapproachable. And then you start looking at the lines and you're like, oh, I know what these dollars are. I know where they've gone. It's not as complicated as it seems.
Yeah. And by the way, 90% of people take the standard deduction now. It used to be much less than that, but now with the increased standard deduction, 90%.
The next question that we got is it better to owe taxes or get a refund? This is the great debate. This is the great human nature, behavioral finance debate question. So let's all weigh in. Kristen, is it better to owe taxes or get a refund?
You mean you want to loan your money to the government?
God, here we go.
Free?
I regret this.
That is the argument, though, right? It's like, why would I let the government use my money? I think that it's totally, it's your personal preference. Look, I don't like to write a check to the government after I've already paid all year. I would rather get a refund because nothing boils my blood quicker than having to write a check in April.
Dame, you and I have been business owners for a long time.
Mhm.
Can I assume that you've written one of those checks that really, really hurts?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very safe to assume.
And it's not really cool to talk about in public or in wide circles because it seems like complaining. It seems like, oh, I had to write a big check, but the reason you had the big check is because you got made about it. But it's never really goes like that. It's not that simple. It is still incredibly awful.
The only people you can complain to are other people you think are going to have to write checks or have in the past.
Not on a radio show.
Not on a radio show.
So Dame, what do you think? Is it better to owe or to get a refund?
I really thought you were going to say, how much was that check?
Off the air, we can compare horror stories.
As long as it's close to zero, I don't care if you owe or if you have to pay a little bit. I know as you said, the financial behavior is going to say, if that's what you use as a savings account, so be it. But my pragmatic self says just get it close to zero, one way or the other.
For what it's worth, I am more likely to do something with a refund that is smart as opposed to have my cash flow increase over the course of a year.
Because you're making a decision at one simple point or one specific point versus
one decision versus hundreds, thousands.
Yeah.
Next question. How do you know if you need an accountant? I was going to ask that earlier. Like there's do-it-yourself. There's the simple free services and super cheap services, or there's an actual human that is very professional. How do you know, Dame?
If you've got a simple, straightforward tax situation, W-2 income, maybe some 1099 interest statements that come into you as well, chances are you're likely fine. You're going to be able to knock this out by yourself. If you start getting into Schedule C's and K1s, you want to have somebody take a look at it until you are absolutely sure you're doing it properly yourself, because it is super easy to claim some of those write-offs that maybe you shouldn't have along the way. So get the help that you need as your tax situation gets more complicated. If then you feel like you're comfortable doing it yourself, feel free to roll the dice, but you can always lean back on that professional.
Kristen, for about 20 years, I had the same tax preparer, and he was great. His company was great. And about 4 or 5 years in that relationship, I was like, I can do this. I messed up my taxes so badly. Then I had to get him back involved to like save my bacon. It was terrible. And I don't think that's an uncommon problem.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Dame, can you give us, let's try to see if we can answer one more question here. Free or low cost filing options? What if you've got a very simple situations? What do you do?
As you said, there's IRS free file. If you've got an AGI under $84,000, you can also get fillable forms where you write up on pencils, but head to IRS Trusted Partners, and there'll be about 6 different options you can find there for good options.
We're going to answer a few more questions when we get back and more. All that's next on the Pete the Planner Show. Pete the Planner. Okay, we're flying now. It's because of all the silly at the beginning, Kristen.
Sorry.
The nerve.
I'd love to blame people.
Let's try to be entertaining.
3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner Show, answering your tax questions. Dame and Kristen are here. They've been birthed. Each of them are alive.
Congratulations.
They have been born. They are also certified financial planning practitioners. That doesn't make them tax experts, but it does mean they know more about taxes than I certainly do. Dave, if you're married, specifically newly married, should you file jointly or separately the first year? I've never considered this, so I'm so glad I don't have to answer these.
It is almost always advantageous to file married filing jointly versus separately. There's only a handful of situations where it might make sense to do married filing separately, and then it starts to get a little bit more complicated because you start to lose deductions when you do married filing separately. Kristen, there's one specific example for a newly married that I can think of potentially. That includes student loans.
Yeah. If one of you is potentially facing garnishment on your student loans, if you file separately, that can protect the refund of the spouse that doesn't have the student loans. That's exactly the situation I was thinking of. I was also thinking of income disparities with multiple dependents, maybe is another common situation. Those were the two that came to mind for me.
Kristen, so this decision point of jointly or separately, it's not about we have separate finances or not. It's more practical and pragmatic than that, is that you will be economically advantaged more often than not by filing jointly.
Correct. That's exactly what that means. And if you are working with a preparer, their software probably can pretty easily switch from separately to joint to make sure that you're filing in a way that makes the most sense for you.
Dame, why does sales commission get taxed at a higher rate than a normal salary? If you have a commission-based seller in your family, what's the best way to plan so that you're not way over or underpaying with a standard deduction? Is this, you're not a commission salesperson. I don't think you've ever really gone down this path too much. What do you know?
First, let me let whoever wrote the question, let me promise you that it's not taxed at a different rate. It's withheld at a different rate. It's supplemental income. And so it could be, I mean, back in the day, Peter, some people had their bonuses or their commissions withheld the top marginal tax rate for that year, which was at that point like close to 40%. So that looks completely different right now. If it's even done, because it doesn't, every company doesn't do this anymore. But if it's done, it's typically in the 22-ish% range that it's withheld at, and then it all gets reported to the IRS on the same W-2 that you receive at the end of the year. So the withholding is different; it's not taxed differently.
Interesting. What's better, a deduction or a credit, Kristen?
Totally depends on your income. And that's a very Damian Dunn answer. Like, well,
Yes.
It depends.
Wow.
But it really does. If you are a lower income individual, a credit is usually more beneficial versus if you are in a higher tax bracket, a deduction could be more beneficial. So, and that's very, very overgeneralized, but a decent rule of thumb.
I'm going to jump around a little bit. Some other things, Dame, in pop culture in the last, I'll go 5 years, it's been more acceptable to gamble and to have winnings, gambling. Talk to me a little bit about that. Are gambling winnings taxable?
Yes, very, very much so. You will need to settle up with Uncle Sam at the end of the year to square that off. However, gambling losses.
Wait, say more.
I'm not saying anymore. This is where I wish Mrs. Advice would have been on the show. Yeah, but I can 100% guarantee that gambling winnings are taxable.
Go ahead, Kristen.
You can deduct your losses, but only up to your winnings. Right? Isn't that, I think that's the way that works. And so a lot of the time then, I think as most of us know, then you end up having a wash. But this is also true for like gambling winnings that might not be through like an app where you would have then received a tax form from them. Technically, all winnings are taxable. Just saying.
Dame, Donald John Trump, President of the United States, says that we're not going to tax tips anymore. Is that in force? And if it is, can I just make my entire compensation gratuity and not pay taxes? The mic is yours.
You're asking me to speculate on a proposal that isn't in effect law yet?
Indeed.
Yeah, do whatever you want, man. You're a free country. Just don't tell the IRS anything.
Kristen, people make a big deal about climbing tax brackets or going up and down. Like, where do these misconceptions exist, or what do people need to know about a change in tax bracket?
Yeah, we hear that a lot. It's like, well, I got a raise, but I jumped tax brackets, so I ended up paying more. And it's like, well, it's probably not entirely true. So our federal tax system anyway is progressive, meaning the more you take, the more you make, the larger percentage the federal government takes. But there is a difference between what is your marginal tax rate, which is the tax rate on the last dollar you make, versus your effective tax rate, which is just your average rate across the board. So if you get a raise that brings you into the next bracket, it's only for the dollars that you make above the tax bracket you're currently in that are being taxed at a higher rate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but let's say that you've got $3,000 over that bracket. Your tax rate, instead of being, I don't know, 25%, is maybe 28%. So it's only a 3% difference on that $3,000, which is nothing. $90. Dame?
Yeah, I mean it's a very incremental increase in your overall effective tax rate.
What else? The IRS can audit you for 3 years, but if they suspect fraud, it's even longer. Kristen, if you've listened to, I don't know, any media outlet in the last 2 weeks, President Trump's talked about shedding IRS agents and not hiring like 80,000. I don't know. Here's what I know. I want a bunch of IRS agents because I want my taxes done faster. But there's a feeling that this leads to more audits. What say you, and like, what should people know about audits?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most common misconception is that, like, if you make a mistake on your taxes, that you're going to go to jail. I just recently had a situation where, bless her heart, Mrs. Advice helped a friend of mine who was literally convinced they were going to go to jail. And I'm like, you made a mistake because of true lack of information and ignorance. You weren't fraudulent. You weren't trying to cheat the government out of money. And so that's where the difference is if you make a mistake on your taxes, you might have to pay a penalty for underpayment, but like, it's not likely that you're going to jail because you weren't out here like laundering money or sending it to offshore accounts or sending in fraudulent tax returns.
And I will say, if you write a letter to the IRS with whenever you discover this and you say, listen, I messed up, chances are they're going to forgive you. I mean, they might still put the penalty on there. They might not. So just be upfront with it.
Dane, we're pushing the show called Pete Role Plays Kristen's Conversations with Her Friends. You're Kristen's friend. I'm Kristen.
Okay.
And I want you to begin with, I've made a mistake, okay? And then I'll take it from there.
Cricket, I've made a huge mistake.
Oh, I understand. But here's the thing. You're not evil. You're just dumb. And that's how I talk to my friends. And scene.
It's brilliant.
Oh, I can actually. Here's the thing, Kristen. You may or may not have said that, but I know you thought it. You thought it.
Might have said it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So this has been the SpecTAXular. If you have other questions, they aren't just limited to this show. You can always email us, askpete@petetheplanner.com. And here's what I'll promise you. I won't know the answers to any of your questions, but I've got two very talented people who do, and their names are Cricket and Dame. All right. Coming up after the break, we move off the tax bandwagon, or maybe not. I don't know if Dame's current event stories are about taxes or not, but I do know we have an amazing biggest waste of money of the week. That is next. Blom and News right here on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. All right, Kristen, we caught back up on time, so that's good.
Yeah, we did. What's your no-buy?
What's a what?
What's your no-buy?
Oh, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Set us up here.
Okay, so social media recently, there have been these this was even in the Wall Street Journal, so I feel like
wow.
it's legit. There are these challenges to do no-buy or low-buy months in an attempt to kind of reset your spending in particular categories. So here on the Pete Planner Show, for the month of February, we are each choosing a category of no-buy / low-buy. and we're going to see who fares the worst.
Is it based on free number of occurrences, or is it dollar amount of who's going to be judged the winner or loser?
That's a great question. And I think it depends on the parameters. So for example, mine is that my person and I are only spending $100 this month at the grocery store.
Which is bonkers. I mean, it's just like
That's
5 heads of lettuce.
I'm $100. That's our limit for the month. So it's not frequency of trips. It's the dollar amount for
so you're just going to dine out more, which is dumb. And you're going to spend more money.
Negative. He's only allowed to go to lunch at work once a week. And then we have an allowance for one trip out with friends if they have something that they need to celebrate.
Well, this is why, A, I'm glad I don't have friends. B, you're putting him on you are taking your special friend, your partner, and you are saying, you shall not dine at lunch.
Correct.
Ooh. Okay, Dan, what's yours?
I am going to do a low buy on Amazon for discretionary purposes, and I am implementing a 72-hour hold period before I allow myself to click buy on that.
I need to understand the severity of your challenge here. How many days a week are you typically solving a problem with a trip to Amazon?
I don't know. 1 or 2 days a week, probably.
Wow. Okay.
That's more than I
That's
expected.
a lot. Yeah, me too.
Maybe,
all right.
Maybe.
Peter?
Oh, what? Who? What are you, my mother?
You're in my phone as Pete Dunn.
Ooh.
That's perfect.
I was with my mom last weekend. She still calls me Peachy Pie. I'm never going to shake it. Mine is I will not have any food delivered to my home in the month of February, the shortest month of the year.
Please note that Peter's at work the vast majority of the day.
No delivery to work either.
No.
You're at work all day.
I know, but that is like time is money. When I'm at home, okay, let's say it's a Saturday night.
Okay, that's fair.
And I feel all right. The party's here on the west side. I'm sorry. So I reach for my 40 and I pick it up. Designated driver because I got keys to the truck.
Yeah.
Okay. Kristen, you know that song?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. Wow. You almost got kicked off the show. On occasion, I'm like, we're bored. We get home. We'll order this. And they bring it. And because you're like, I've already got my shoes off. I don't want to go back out. What I'm saying now is I'll put my shoes back on and I'll just go and get it. And it will reduce the amount of times we get carry out delivery. Number two, it's a lot less expensive because you do the thing. It's like 30% more.
Mm-hmm. I bet you eat out less as a result too, because I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling really lazy and if I told myself I can't have it delivered, then I'm just not going to get it at all because I'm too lazy to go get it.
I think as Dave knows, the complicating factor here is too hungry, demanding adolescents.
I was already going to say that your daughter at some point is going to get sick of it and just do it from her phone.
The funniest thing was when your young teen kids first figure out DoorDash or whatever, they're like, I'm going to get chia pudding delivered. It's $38. And it's because of all the fees and everything. And once she was like, can I do this? And I was like, well, who's paying for it? She's like, I am. I'm like, go right ahead. You dummy. If you want a $4 chia pudding and paying $36 for it, have at it. Dummy. That's my parenting style. That's sarcastic. That's a good idea. Anyway. Let's do a show. Oh, we got to get going. Kristen. We're actually pretty good.
You're still
so you guys are both taking the under on 185, 90 days out.
I think so.
So what's that going to be? I start on the 3rd. So it'll be April 3rd. We'll go with April 3rd.
That's
right.
No.
February, March. Oh no, May 3rd.
Yeah.
That's my birthday.
Hey,
happy 40th. Okay.
Rough.
Blake, our finance guy, our man in finance, brought in his cat to the office yesterday, Lana.
Yeah.
Just for a little show and tell. Damn, I couldn't breathe the rest of the day. I'm violently allergic to cats. My nose immediately stuffed up. I'm like hack coughing. He tried to kill me.
I was wondering if anybody was going to have issues with that in the office.
And the cat was hanging out in my office. Like I was out doing stuff. It was in here to like cleaning itself.
Perfect.
And I'm still looking for if it, did something in here.
Oh, you'd know.
I don't know. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Is that your neonatal chiropractor?
Yeah. They're really working over a fetus in there.
Somebody is in trouble. Wow.
Well, I'm so I can't talk about this. There's two things I can't.
Last segment.
Dead air.
No, that's not dead air.
I know.
It's some drilling.
I was listening to it, but yeah.
I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
But trying not to be petty, which is very hard. No petty February.
Good thing it's January.
In 3, 2, 1. This week's biggest waste of money of the week, right here on the Pete the Planner show, is the Louis Vuitton Vivienne sur Maille edible robot. You can purchase treats created by pastry chef Maxime Frederic in Louis Vuitton's flagship stores in Paris, Singapore, and Shanghai. You can now add New York to the list with the opening of Le Chocolat Maxime Frederic at Louis Vuitton in the 57th Street Outpost. To celebrate, Frederic has created Vivienne sur Maille, an edible creation that combines elements of candy making, trunk making, and horology, which is not what you think it is. This piece finds the brand's mascot, Vivienne, standing atop an LV trunk, which hides a system of over 20 interlocking gears turned by a milk chocolate crank, which causes the figure to move. Handmade in Paris, each one takes over 3 hours to assemble and weighs over 2.5 pounds. Kristen, how much does this Louis Vuitton chocolate robot cost?
Are you supposed to just stare at it, or do people actually eat it?
Well, I know your dog can only stare at it because if it were to consume it, it would kill the animal.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not made of carob. Go ahead. What do you think?
This is oh my gosh, I don't know. This is a $600 chocolate robot.
Dame, how much for this robot made of cacao? Cacao.
I was originally going to say 7, but that seems too close to 6. So I'll double Kristen, say $1,200.
The answer is $350.
Still too much.
Dame, this week's news is brought to you by the loud construction going on next door outside my office wall. And what's in the news this week?
We all called it. The Federal Reserve decided to keep interest rates at its current target between 4.25% and 4.5%. Yay. Turns out our pesky old friend inflation hasn't gotten the hint that the party's over, Fed Chair Jerome Powell explained, albeit in a much more boring way during his press conference. The Fed will need to see, quote, real progress on inflation or weakness in the labor market before making more adjustments to the future federal funds rate, Powell declared. He went on to note that core inflation is still at 2.8%, higher than the Fed's 2% stated goals.
We talked about this last week from the opposite angle, that the president demanded interest rates be lowered. But after listening to Powell's comments, I feel like he's thumbing his nose at it. He's like, well, we're going to have to see something better to do. By the way, I agree with the Fed for what it's worth, but I also feel like the comments were really pointed.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's the right decision, but I mean, even if there was a chance that they could lower them, I'm not entirely sure they would have.
Yeah, I think they're poking the bear at that point. What else is in the news, Dan?
OpenAI has decided that actually, protecting one's IP is important. The AI company and its largest investor, Microsoft, are investigating whether Chinese AI startup DeepSeek stole OpenAI's tech to build its new show-stopping model that wiped nearly $1 trillion in value from U.S. stocks this week. If you're not on the dev team, DeepSeek is being accused of using a technique called distillation, which is essentially trains one model on another. This method is prevalent in the AI world, but it's against OpenAI's policies to use its models to build a rival. The hypocrisy. Critics and anyone online who is slightly tuned into the AI race may have pointed out that OpenAI, which has built its whole company around questionably scraping everything on the internet, accusing someone of stealing its tech is pretty rich. The AI company is currently in a lawsuit with the New York Times claiming that training its AI models on publicly available articles is fair use.
Yeah, it's going to be a really awkward moment when companies like NVIDIA, who said you're going to need all of these chips to build all of this AI, face the reality that maybe you don't need the chips because they're just trained on other models, and then it just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. It's good for the public, bad for NVIDIA investors.
Yes.
Kristen, what's your favorite AI tool?
I do use ChatGPT. I've built my own though.
Whoa.
As in, I mean, it's not that complicated. You just go in and train it about you and your writing style and the like. And I give it some more information about me and what I do every day, and it produces higher and higher quality responses.
Have you shared with your ChatGPT that you will only be spending $100 this month on groceries?
No, I have not.
Dame, which one do you use?
GPT.
Yeah, fair. What else is in the news?
It's not exactly a Robin Hood story, and we're talking old school Robin Hood, not sorry. But it seems plenty of rich young shoppers are comfortable stealing from even richer companies as long as it happens online. Some of the same people who probably can't stand toothpaste is behind lock and key at their local drugstore, since they'd never shove it in their pocket without paying for it, don't seem to have the same qualms about falsely claiming packages never arrived, disputing legit credit card purchases from online retailers, or saying they never made sports bets that didn't go their way, per Axios. A survey conducted by anti-fraud tech maker Socure in December found that this percentage of Gen Zers and this percentage of millennials who earn more than $100,000 a year admitted they'd stolen from an online retailer in the last year, committing what's known as first-party fraud in the anti-fraud biz. So, what percentage of Gen Zers and what percentage of millennials who earn more than $100,000 admitted they'd done some online thievery?
Gen Z is 1 in 4, 25%.
I'm pre-furious as to how much I'm going to lose faith in humanity. First, I started my day in the carpool line, which this is not the great way to start your day.
Yeah.
I almost get in a mental fight every day in that line. I'm going with 20%, Dame. If it's more than that, I'm going to lose it.
55% admitted it.
Okay, wait, I have a clarifying question. Does this include like when a retailer messes up and sends you something that you didn't pay for? Because I've done that.
I don't believe so, but
okay.
I mean, they're literally asking people if they've committed fraud.
Intentionally committed fraud. Okay.
Millennials, 49%.
Guys, everyone loves to point to reasons why this whole ship is sinking around here. You know, not the show, because that's been at the bottom of the ocean for years.
1%.
Society, culture. This is good evidence. That is awful. That is awful. I would throttle my kids verbally if they ever did anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, if this is the amount that admitted to it, think the actual number is higher or lower?
Higher.
It's higher. I that is so infuriating. I'm going to go yell at our youngs outside after this show's over. I'm going to go out in the office like, all right, young people, who's done this? And then,
let's set up a Google form. Let's see who cops to it.
Oh man, that's disheartening. You've just ruined my week.
It's horrible.
I mean, there's a lot going on, but this itself has ruined my week. Any other news, Dame? Can you uplift us a little bit?
No.
No,
it's more expensive to climb Mount Everest than it's ever been before. So if that's part of your 90-day challenge, Pete, you might want to think twice about it.
Can I guess what it costs?
Sure. During the popular March to May climbing season.
$77,000.
Double it.
Actually, it says it's $15,000.
No.
Well, you can't get a good Sherpa for that.
So veteran climber Jake Meyer told the reporting company that the full cost of the trip up Everest ranges from $40,000 to $150,000, The higher permit fees represent only a minimal increase in overall cost, and he's lumping in travel and things like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That's what Chris
Oh,
was thinking. Okay, so we were right there. Dame, have you ever aspired to climb a peak of that magnitude or a similar magnitude?
No.
Chris?
Zero desire.
I have climbed 10,700 foot mountain, Mount Baker, in like Bellingham, Washington, when I was in college with my dad. And I get such bad altitude sickness that the last 600 feet that my dad was dragging me up like Weekend at Bernie's. The pictures are hilarious. Anyway, that's all we have time for on this SpecTAXular show. Next week, more of fun, finance, and frivolity. Sending good vibes. Good vibes are all that's in the budget. I'm Pete the Planner. Pete the Planner Show.
Back on Friday next week.
I'm so mad about the noise next door.
Yeah, that's not great.
It's not
I was
good.
on a very important call yesterday. I'm just like, I'm starting to feel bad. And this baby is just going. And the person's like, "Oh, are you working from home?" I'm like, "No, I'm in like class A office space is where I am." Sorry. I get upset. Sorry. Dan, what are you doing this weekend? Anything fun?
I will be returning to one of the most beautiful areas in Indiana, West Lafayette, for a swim meet.
Kristen, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to be in the office tomorrow morning.
Oh, I won't.
Yeah. Oh. And the Purdue IU game is tomorrow night. So going to a friend's house to watch it.
Nice. Boys weekend. Ted and I are going to a Pacer game and then a little man dinner, I think,
Nice. Ouch. No, you're not ordering it to be sent to the house.
Well, it's February 1st, so no.
Yeah, you could. So yeah, enjoy it while you can.
All right, Kristen, now we have 3 minutes to go to our next meeting now.
Yay.
Hey, everybody. This was fun. Remember, you can watch the show, but you just listened to it. So go back and watch it now is why you got to tell them at the beginning. Next week, you can watch the show. YouTube.com/pitfalls. Stay getting money.